Welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a podcast about all things geek. We're looking at comic characters and the changes their counterparts undergo in other media today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and also follow us on social media. Thanks for listening. All right, more times than not, adapting a character from the page to the screen can result in some changes being made. In some cases, these changes will be met with some criticism, sometimes a lot of criticism. But we also can't rule out that in some of these instances, these characters are changed for the better. So I thought we would explore some of the changes and look at the ways that some of them hurt and some of them helped out an existing character. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
I'm Tommy Smithereens.
I'm Clifton.
All right. So, Tommy, I'll go to you first. What do you got?
When I was thinking about this topic, I had a little trouble. I was thinking about the bad things, but then it occurred to me closer to when we were speaking that the one character that I think, no matter what format he puts it on, he's gold. And I wanted to say Batman. I don't care what format this Joker's on, it's going to make money or it's going to be successful. Whether he's coming out of the comics, going into TV, producing a movie, making an animated series, making a live action show, works. Now, whatever incarnation you show may not work as well as previously, but he's proven to be successful in everything you can imagine.
I have always thought, and it will be an unpopular response, but I have always thought that with Batman, there's no real wrong answer. There is an answer that is more preferred than others, right? But this is kind of timely with the fact that Joel Schumacher died, right? Mm. I don't think that Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are, those are valid adaptations in my head, right? I mean, there is a version of the character that existed that those movies are aping, right? It's not what people wanted. It's not the popular thing that was out there that everybody was looking forward to. But I can't say that it's not the material either. You know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, well, I don't, you know how I feel about that particular movie, which we'll go and mention as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I agree with you. It's just a level of what you prefer and what you don't prefer based upon how the character's portrayed. It'll always be, I've never seen the character portrayed in which they ultimately regret that portrayal of that character. It may not be as big as what they wanted to achieve, but it's never met with complete disdain, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Yeah. I would say that character, and what I wanted to say originally was TMNT and Spider-Man.
Okay.
Those three put together, now mind you, everyone has their preferred way of seeing it or whatever the case may be, but I don't think we'll ever not see those characters in one format or another. It'll always be shown to us in such a way that it'll never go away. Everyone wants to tell their story concerning something of the matter and make it that much bigger than what was shown before it, right?
Well, I agree with you with Batman, right? I think that I can't name a version of Batman on screen that didn't work.
Okay.
Right? And what I mean that like his versatility, Brave and the Bold, it works. Right? It's valid interpretation. The Dark Knight, valid interpretation. Adam West, valid interpretation, right? All of them. The one that I would say for Spider-Man is do you remember the 90s cartoon? What was it? Spider-Man Unlimited, which is the one where he was in space on Counter Earth. You remember this one?
Yeah, it's unlimited.
Okay.
Yeah, he basically goes to like another dimension.
Yeah, exactly. The idea being that there was a Counter Earth that was exactly on the other side of the orbit.
On the sun.
Of the sun.
Like it was just at a different point in the orbit.
Yeah. So they never saw each other.
Right. It's an idea that it's an idea that comes out of like the High Evolutionary. It set up a Counter Earth.
Yes.
A lot of early Adam Warlock stories take place there.
Okay. I admire the boldness of doing it back then, but that's one that I'm just like, all right. Kind of missed the mark on that one, I think. Mm-hmm. But TMNT, I think that now, you're starting to get to a place where they are trying new things with those characters too. Like the current show that's on right now, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's no version we've ever grown up with, but like it works, I think.
Yeah, it's ever expanding.
And it's got some changes that it's got one change that it kept from the 2012 animated series, which was a really good change, I thought, then from the source material, which is when they made April a teenage girl instead of an adult woman. I think the first time I saw that was in the 2012 Nickelodeon show, and then Rise of Turtles does it as well. And that was a change that I think really made sense.
Yeah.
And really helped sell the turtles as teenagers as opposed to just like hanging out with an adult professional working woman. Like, I really do think it helped that they had like a friend to hang out with and have teenage problems with and stuff like that.
Instead of a den mother.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think the 2012, the first series that Nickelodeon did, I think they did a lot of things right on that one, but I think that's going to go down as sort of like the big contribution that show made, I think, is that they made her, and they made Casey Jones
right,
teenagers too. And I just think it's just such a like, duh. Like, why didn't they do that before?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think even the current books now have able to add another turtle without having total disdain, which was a problem with the live action show, I believe. I think the new creation is called Mona Lisa, in which they incorporated it successfully in the comics. And there's not an adverse, hate for her to be
hang
in
on. So, no, Mona Lisa was like a gecko from the original series.
Okay.
Venus de Milo, that's the one you're thinking about. Venus de Milo was the one from like the Power Rangers live action Ninja Turtle show that was on for like a season. She was the one from there.
Okay. No, but Venus is the one that they hate. Mona Lisa is a new character in the books.
Oh yeah?
Oh,
I haven't read the new books that I've read like the first couple of arcs and everything, but I just think it's cool that the idea is getting flexible now and everything. Like when I remember seeing art for the Rise of TMNT show coming out, and I remember like, wow, like they're changing the weapons and stuff like that. And I remember thinking that like in my head, like that stuff was all crucial, that like Michelangelo had the nunchucks and Raphael had the size, and then like all the changes that they made, I'm like, wow, we kind of really don't need it. You know, like they made like all the turtles different turtles too. Like they like, you know, and I'm like, okay, that works. That's fine. You know, like I guess I don't need it all to be like what we had.
No, but it's nice that, I mean, you know, just add more to the character structure in the universe, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and to call back, Zach, you're 100% correct with Venus de Milo.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was wrong. Her name is Janika, not Mona Lisa.
Okay. Janika. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you for saying that out loud. I've been wondering how to pronounce that for weeks now.
I could be completely wrong.
No, we'll go with it. No.
Okay.
I like it.
I was thinking more about when we were talking about this topic, I thought more it was, to me, I kept running into this thing of like a lot of my stuff, my issues were with like cosmetic changes here and there. And I realized that was really kind of minute in a lot of changes. Like for example, like with Avengers, like or Captain America. Captain America didn't have the wings on the side. I mean, he does painted on the side of his helmet, but it's not the same thing as like in the comics where he has like the swashbuckler boots and the wings. But getting back to Batman stuff, I was thinking about like in the movies when we had Batman 89, and like a really big departure from what we had in the comics is the idea that Jack is dead, my friends. Jack becomes Joe Chill in the movie.
Oh yeah,
which is a really big departure from anything we had previously had in any of the books. Like there really wasn't a moment where, you know, you had a young up and coming contract killer who happened to have a huge wide grin.
Yeah.
You know, who then in turn puts on the Red Hood costume and gets dumped in chemicals and becomes the Joker. Like that's something we'd never really had before, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought when I was thinking more of like along the lines of what we were talking about, I was thinking as opposed to like, you know, the big grandiose idea of like trying to adapt something from page to from panel or page to the screen or animation or whatever. That was the kind of thing I kept leaning into was like, that's a huge change, right? Like it's
that is a huge change. You know, it is a huge change. That was a change that also that stuck around a lot, right? Like, not in the comics or anything like that, but like it's stuck in
No.
people's heads a lot. Like
It's also in rewatching when we went to go see the anniversary of Mask of the Phantasm. There's a
Okay.
shot.
Yeah,
There's a shot of there's the moment where he kind of catcalls at what's her name at
Andrea.
yeah, at Andrea.
Yeah.
And then there's the picture of like the old gang, quote unquote, before the Phantasm starts bumping them off. And there's a picture clearly of him, the Joker being part of that, being part of that group. Well, he's not a boss. He's definitely part of that group, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's one of those things where around that time when the animated series kicks in, it's still playing a little bit off of 89's, continuity, quote unquote. Not really, because if you've seen 89, you know what happens to the Joker. So
Right.
But that was one of the things where I kept, like, when I started to think about, there's been a million Batman shows and there's been, adaptations here and there. That was one of the ones that when I think about it, like, that's a big one. The other one I thought was huge, again, and it's not Batman 89 so much, it's Batman Returns, is you get the bit where, before Oswald, before the Penguin was really sort of, the rotund guy who went walling around with an umbrella, he was never, before 89, was he ever like a penguin creature who ate the heads off of fish.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Who had to be in the cold. Also, there's yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They toyed with the idea that he was, failed from a failed family or disgraced family or whatever. That was kind of, might have been implied before then. And, and there's an origin where he had, his parents had owned a pet shop and they fell into ruin and he became the Penguin as a result of that. But there'd never really been that moment of, yeah, he's you're going to watch him eat fish.
Right.
Dan DeVito's there eating those raw fish. And I thought that was another one where I thought that one also bleeds into the animated series as well.
Yeah.
What, his deformity and his
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it did.
But let me ask you guys this about the Penguin though, right? Because Frank, you and I kind of talk, and like I'm curious. So, did bits of the Penguin from Batman Returns, as bizarre as it is, did parts of it stick around in some capacity, right? So, like, when we talk Batman, we talk about, like, one of the things we like about the Penguin is sort of this idea that, like, he's very much of that elite, like, 1% world, but at the same time, he doesn't quite fit in it, right? Like, he's an outsider among this world that he's born into. At the same time, and I think so. No, I'm just going to open it up about you guys to you guys on that one. I'm curious what you guys think about that, because I think bits of Batman Returns work, and I also think bits of it like really don't with that character.
Well, no, I just thought it was creepy. I mean, I get what they were trying with the mutant penguin kid that was raised like instead of wolves like Mowgli to penguins, but I mean it kind of takes away from it. But to me, what evens it out, I like is the Catwoman stuff. I mean, that's equally creepy.
Right.
Like they breathe life into her.
Right. Yeah, that was my next thing, Tommy, was the idea that we definitely get that thing of
she's resurrected by stray cats.
She's resurrected by stray, possibly feral cats.
Right.
And she gets 9 lives, right? They don't like, there's always that running joke, and like even a lot of the Bronze Age stuff is like, oh, she escaped and she dodged a bullet and she's got 9 lives like a cat does, blah blah blah. But it's again, it's a fairly literal take in Batman Returns where they breathe life back into her. She comes back and she, has a couple points where she, quote unquote, may have died, and then came back again, And then there's the climax of the thing with Max Schreck where she's, she's getting shot, and it's like, well, nope, we see in the epilogue that she's still around. So again, that's a take that doesn't echo back onto the books. Like there's no real, there's no mysticism to Catwoman that's the case. It's sort of like, no, that was the movie.
Yeah.
And none of that stuff really stuck to the comics, did it?
Like I said, as far as I know, I mean, there's never been, I mean, there's times where she might grab something that's cat related that might be semi-mystical,
right?
But there's never, she's always just been, that's been, she wears a suit, or dress or whatever the costume is for the time period and has a whip and cat, it's all cat themed, but there's never been, as far as I know, anything of that nature. No. Same thing with Penguin, where it was always, he's a guy, he's, trick umbrellas and, it looks sort of like the. If I remember correctly, I read in one of those Batman books about origins of the villains. He was drawn to look sort of like what the old Penguin mascot used to be on the cool cigarettes on the packaging.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that right?
Mhm.
Because I remember that is sort of like when they were, I don't know if someone in the bullpen or wherever they were coming up with, whoever came up with him, maybe it was Bill Finger, but I don't remember for sure. But someone, looked at that pack and thought, well, we could make this work, and then made the Penguin based on that. So
yeah. I mean, like he doesn't have flippers usually in every take anymore, but there is a grotesqueness that in some takes has stuck around. Like I'm thinking of
the Batman.
The Batman, right? The Batman, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Cartoon from, what was that, 2004, 2003?
Yeah. Okay.
That's an interesting one, Clifton, because I've always thought that they didn't quite know which way to go with him, that they kind of wanted to play it both ways a little bit, because he's kind of grotesque and at the same time, completely like is a snob also, but comes from that world.
Well, it's funny
there's like no abandonment there.
I think what I think is odd, well, not odd, but I've kind of, and it's one of the things that kind of occurred to me as we're talking about it. He's always been he's been upper crust, but he's also kind of like a morally repugnant character kind of at the same time. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I can't help but think that part of Danny DeVito playing like Louis De Palma didn't help run off, didn't help basically infer or basically, imbue that character with some of Louis De Palma's, characteristics after the fact. But one of the things I thought about was like, once they get to the Red Skies animated stuff of the Batman animated world, when he no longer has the flippers, he's more of like the, kind of, typical Penguin that we've had for decades. And they introduced the Iceberg Lounge. And from that point in the comics, that echoes back. And the Iceberg Lounge is one of those things where, like, well, if you're looking for Penguin, even in like the Arkham games, right, Tommy?
Yeah, what I like about the Penguin in the Arkham games is what his monocle turned into a hat, the bottom of a Coke bottle shoved in his eye.
Yeah.
That's
what
I was thinking too. Is the Arkham games? He's he's a little gross too.
Well, he's more like he's got like a Cockney accent, right? And he's definitely much more of like. They play him again more kind of morally repugnant, but they also definitely play up the fact that he's a lot more gristly than you would think.
Yeah, he's like a Guy Ritchie character. I remember
exactly.
I remember what you were saying to me, Frank, one time.
Yeah, very much so.
No, I think Iceberg Lounge is a super important development for the character too. I just think that it was it was a missing piece that nobody thought was nobody thought there was a missing piece to him, but like suddenly when they added it, like, oh, okay.
Right.
Like there's kind of like he's trying to walk this edge of legitimacy, but also at the same time, like he's absolutely doing stuff behind the scenes too. Like,
it's almost got a bit of like Casablanca to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they make him a weapons dealer too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff going on, in and out of the back, kind of like the scene, that scene in Goodfellas where they're coming through with the minks while Ray Liotta and what's her name are walking to their table. But I think it's one of the things where it's interesting, like the idea, like I said with Casablanca, where the idea that Rick's Place, or I can't remember, what is the name of Rick's Place? Is it Rick's Place?
Cafe American.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In Casablanca, where it's kind of like, that's a front for basically whatever's going on, but you can't always prove that something's going on.
Yeah.
And in its own way, Penguin has a setup like that, which again, that's one of the few things that originates in that animated series. It definitely goes back towards, definitely reflected in the comics for a long, long time.
Yeah. Made by the same guys. The one that I think that was kind of a change for the better is Brainiac from Superman the Animated Series. I thought really making him like this AI android, and tying his origins to the destruction of Krypton gives him like a generational aspect that like he's Jor-El's arch enemy, but he's also Kal-El's arch enemy. And I think another interesting development is that there's kind of like a boogeyman aspect to Brainiac when they introduced it this way, because like he could always upload his memory someplace,
right?
So you're never really quite rid of him.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a. I mean, when I think about that, the Corey, like Corey Burton's so good as Brainiac and all the stuff that he does, Justice League and all of it. But I always thought more along the lines of someone looked at other AI characters throughout comics. It was like, we should do an Ultron bit. Like you said, the fact that, with Ultron, if there's any bit of programming of Ultron anywhere in the world or the galaxy or wherever, you're not rid of Ultron. And I think that's what they decided to do with Brainiac. Same thing, where it's kind of like, nah, he's always lurking someplace.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a beautiful, beautiful version that's sort of taken hold. I mean, you get versions that's sort of like a composite of like, the Milton Fine, like green, skinned alien, but there's also like clearly like some cybernetic aspects to him and kind of a Darth Vader like mashup. He's machine and man or whatever.
Well, there's a point like in I can't remember the issue of Action Comics, but it's the issue of Action Comics where they basically decide that they're going to go away from the typical what had been the Bronze Age Luthor with the green and purple outfit, and you get the armor, right? You get the armor, the superpowers armor. And they do the same thing in that issue with Brainiac, where basically they lean away from him being like the green skinned alien looking for pants, to being just a decent pair of pants, to being more of, like you said, the Darth Vader is kind of like what the ship sort of looks like from that point on. Brainiac's ship always, it looks like a big version of his, his brain or his cranium, his head. From that point on, with the tentacles is basically what Brainiac's ship becomes, and that's another thing that I think grows out of those comics. But again, they still sometimes, they definitely, any Brainiac after that definitely has the symbol, the circles.
Yeah, the 3 circles bit. Yeah.
That's something I know design wise a lot of times with Brainiac is basically stuck. So it's.
Has there ever been a version where Brainiac's ship, like the version that looks like the skull head that's flying? Has there ever been a version where that has been the headquarters of the Legion of Doom, like the Super Friends Legion of Doom?
Not that I know of.
Not mandated.
It
would be cool if somebody connected that.
Yeah, because I think it's just been it's typically like, when you see it in the sky or whatever, it's like with Panic in the Sky or any of that storyline, like along the stuff with Brainiac, it's always Brainiac ship, but it's never been. I'm trying to think even like in the Jim Krueger, Alex Ross Justice, I don't think they even do it in that either, and that's a very very heavily influenced Super Friends Legion of Doom story.
Yes, it is.
So
much.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's just if we could do the adult version of Super Friends and Legion of Doom, that's it. But no, it's not even there. So no, I don't think it's ever been done. So
okay, so what else is out there then?
Well, another one that I thought of was again, this gets back to it was the idea of just big changes from page to page or panel to page or panel to whatever. Was the FF movies, the Fantastic Four movies, and how they had to shoehorn Doctor Doom into their origin.
Okay.
Right.
Like Doom is never, I mean, he's
which both iterations of the movie so far have done
both times, because it's easier than trying to set his origin story up, which again, we've talked about in other episodes. I would personally, I'm all for a Doom trilogy and then the Fantastic Four. I would love to see Doom fleshed out as a character as opposed to being like a footnote within the Fantastic Four, because, Doom's awesome. But, I think you have to do the heavy lifting of setting up the idea that Doom is the world's worst college roommate, right? And then have him become, go off to Tibet and, get the mask and all that stuff. But I do think it's, again, it's either lazy writing or just shorthand, the idea that, well, no, that Doom gets powers from cosmic rays like they do, which is not the case. And it's that way in both, like Clifton was saying, it's in both the Fox as well as the
Fantastic Four 2015 version as well.
Yeah, you're right. But it's one of those things where I think again, it's just to, for economy of time, that's why it's done, as opposed to, really taking the time to flesh out Doctor Doom as a character. Even more so that they make him sort of Euro trashy in the most recent incarnation. Isn't that quite kind of like what he is?
I have not seen the 2015 version yet. Okay. No, but the actor is Toby Kebbell, who I like quite a bit. Like all the cast in that movie are great actors.
Right.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, the reason why I was just thinking about stuff is you had mentioned that it was on Disney Plus, that had been put on recently.
Strangely popped up there,
and it was on cable a while back, and I sat through it in chunks, and it's got a ton of great actors in it. Michael B. Jordan and who else is in it? Miles,
Jamie Bell, Miles
Right.
Teller,
Miles Teller, yeah.
Kate Mara.
Yeah,
Mhm.
some great actors. It's just not a very good movie at all, and it definitely doesn't really. That's the other big change is the idea that it's clobbering time is what Ben Grimm's older brother said to him as he was beating him up. Like that was it's just there's no joy in Mudville. Why would we bother to make this movie this way? I don't really quite get it. But Doom was the one that jumped out at me. Where I'm like, yeah, they've done it twice now.
Yeah, but I didn't like it because it made it seem like if you just go into space, you'll get powers, as
Yeah.
opposed to the cosmic rays just killing you, or the radiation exposure. That's all I saw. It was just a weird way to imbue people with superpowers, and then they turned Dr. Doom into Magneto. That's what I saw it as.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just they treat him like. I mean, he's supposed to be they're one seed, they're A tier villain, and he's kind of a footnote of like, oh yeah, by the way, he's with him and he gets powers too.
Yeah, I think also like in not the 2015, what year that 2005, the one that Chris Evans is in, where he's the Human Torch. There's a weird bit of, I'm not saying this isn't part of Doctor Doom's character, but like a lot of his motivation in that movie reads as coming from vanity, like vanity and jealousy only, right? And I think that those are important pieces for sure, but he's a much deeper character than what we got to see.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And thankfully, none of the stuff that they've done in the movies has gone back to the comics. I mean, there's no, as you said, it's one of the things where most times I think they've gone out of their way to basically say that no, Doom, while he may be vain or was vain at one point, he's not that way anymore. And Doom certainly doesn't need, anyone's assistance to get anything done. So, but like I said, it was just one of the things where I thought of all the characters in those movies, it's a fair, everyone else is pretty much the same, except for the fact that that's played as a really big, they just treat him like a footnote.
Right.
Which, if I remember right, though, in Ultimate Fantastic Four by Mark Millar and Brian Michael Bendis, they do put Doom in the origin too, and it's more like the 2015 film
I believe
version
so,
is from that, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think you're correct about that.
It'll be interesting to see what the MCU does with him, because I have to imagine. I mean, I know that they have plans for him. He's got to be, maybe not the next big bad. Like maybe, he may not be the next Thanos, but he certainly could be very easily. I think one of the ones that I can think of from one of the Marvel movies, but not. This is back in the Fox days, and this is kind of in a weird like I don't like this take, but I kind of like this change. Is Juggernaut from X-Men 3. Like,
what do you like about the change?
I'll tell you what I like about the change. I like that they just straight up made him a mutant.
Okay.
And just like it just were like, okay, we're not going to get into the fact that he got his powers from the crystal and all that other stuff. We're not doing any of that stuff. He's not going to be on screen that much. It's just easier if we just make him into a mutant and just say that's what he is. And that's it. That is the only thing about it that I like. Like I'm good with that. Like, I like that in the comics he's not a mutant, but I just like that they just they just had that shorthand. Like, we're just going to do it that way. And then the rest of the character, I'm like, why didn't he have a shirt on? Like,
right.
Yeah.
No, I never liked that one because it's all about, for me, it was always the idea of like, eventually I thought, well, sooner or later we're going to get to Doctor Strange. And part of the thing with Juggernaut is that he gets it from Cyttorak, which is the thing which is the, that's one of those big spells for Doctor Strange. He even uses it in Infinity War when they're fighting Thanos as a Crimson Man of Cyttorak. When he basically tries to restrain Thanos, that's what the spell he's using. I mean, I know it's a huge, inside dork moment, but I was like, oh, it's Crimson Man, it's cool. But that's what it comes from, because that's where they draw the power from the same place. And I think there was, maybe during Acts of Vengeance, an issue or two where Juggernaut and Strange meet up, and it's kind of like a really tough battle because they're both drawing power from the same place.
From the same place. Well, I like the fact of his anger comes from the fact that he doesn't have powers like his stepbrother. It's more of a jealousy thing, which leads him to get the Cyttorak.
Yes, exactly. Right. That's the other thing too, is the fact that he goes after. He basically, he thinks that Isn't it the idea, Tommy, that he thinks that, it's like one of the things where he thinks that Charles is a puss because he doesn't use his powers for.
Yeah, for the ways that he would do it, and
He
he
would,
sort of like
right?
envies them and hates them all at once. The whole reasoning as to why he would be his lifelong enemy is because of the power dynamic that he's displaying.
Well, they're kind of like thrown together. They're like the parents get together, and they come from other. I think it's Charles' dad still alive, and Juggernaut's mom is still alive. That's
Yeah, they remarry.
They remarry and get together, and as a result, they're thrown together. And Charles is kind of open to the idea of having a brother, and Cain Marco is kind of like, "Yeah, you're an idiot," and doesn't like him, and then finds out he has powers. He's like, "Why don't you use these for like, petty crime or something, or big crime or whatever?"
Yeah.
And then part of the deal is he goes off to like the army, and then eventually, he becomes like a soldier of fortune or like an adventurer type.
No, I thought he turned into a deserter, and he comes across.
Is
the
that what it
cave.
is? It's been a while since I've read it. It could be
It's
one.
one of the
Yeah,
two.
it's one of those. But I remember I thought it was he almost becomes like a Indiana Jones type, and he's raiding tombs or whatever and finds it.
Yes,
It could be. It could be that he left. He deserted his post.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. None of this made it into the movie.
No,
None.
No, not at all.
No.
I don't even think there's a moment. Well, I mean, it's been forever since I've seen X-Men 3 also. But I don't think there's a moment where Juggernaut and Xavier are on screen together.
Yeah,
I don't think they have a scene together.
I don't think they do.
Oh wow. Well, I like the depiction of the Juggernaut in Deadpool too. That was just comical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you just see how massively big he is,
Mm-hmm.
and just potentially just a scary individual that you would not want to confront in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking about those movies, I mean, X3 is another one where I have not seen the last X-Men movie, but they tried to do Dark Phoenix, and then obviously they totally deviate from everything that was in the books.
The first time they tried it and deviated, as opposed to the second time they tried it and deviated.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they've tried. It's just one of the things where they haven't. Again, it's a lot of. It would be a lot of heavy lifting. It'd be a lot to, a lot of your budget would be spent on, trying to set up, Lilandra and the Imperial Guard, and if you want to go that deep into it, I think the 92 one did a better job of doing Dark Phoenix than anything so far.
Right.
Outside of comics, I would think.
And then there's the inclusion of the Hellfire Club too, right? If you're going to do that whole time, just the lead up to it and stuff.
You talk about the manipulation of her by Mastermind?
Yeah, that's what leads up to it eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does. So, but yeah, that's another one where when I think about X3, I'm just like, yeah, they just, they wanted to do it, but boy, they did not look at the source material.
Yeah. At least in the recent one, at least they showed them in the space mission.
No, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
I'm like
at the alien race.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm like, at least the Dark Phoenix, the movie, like we inched closer to it a little bit.
Right. It's funny though when you were saying, Zach, about the Fox stuff, I thought you were leaning, I thought you were going to take one of the other ones that I had. One of the other ones that I had that I thought was a big deal at the time was the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man stuff, and it was the organic web shooters.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Like that was a huge deal. When working in the comic shop at the time, people were like, "I can't believe he has organic web shooters. I can't believe that that's what they're going to go with. I can't believe that And you think of it always makes, when I think of organic web shooters now, I think of what's the Nathan Fillion character from Venture Brothers?
The Brown Recluse.
Yes, I think of Brown Recluse and the fact that he's got a spinneret out of his butt, because like a spider would.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas the Spider-Man, the character, he has them in his wrist in the Tobey
in the Sam
Maguire.
Raimi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Sam Raimi stuff. Because a lot of people were kind of like, well, I can't believe they're not going to show off, that Peter Parker is highly intelligent and designs his own web shooters.
Right, like that was an illustration of part of the character.
Yeah.
Was that he invented them because he was smart.
Right. For a while in the books start to reflect the idea that, oh no, we're gonna lean heavily into this. We have a successful franchise finally at Marvel movies, so the comics have to start to reflect that, and we start to get that inching towards, well, he actually has his body starts to evolve, and he has got organic web shooters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was called the Brown Widow in in Venture Brothers. Yeah.
Is that what it
As
is?
opposed, because it's not the Black Widow, it's the Brown
Right,
Widow.
right.
Yeah,
It's
Brown
yeah.
Widow,
hilarious.
sure. Like the
It
Brown
is
Hornet.
hilarious when I saw it. Yeah, but I mean, the web shooter thing, I remember not really having a dog in that race.
Yeah.
You know, because the trade off, like I said, is that, or like you said, but is that you don't get a showcase of how intelligent Peter is.
Right.
Right. You don't really get a shortcut for that.
Mhm.
Right. But the one argument that I made for it was I was like, what if he gets spider powers and he can do everything else a spider can do?
Right.
Except for this one thing. Like, why
Sure.
would he not be able to make webs in any way?
Sure. But he didn't
Now,
have like
granted, I'm with you
didn't
that,
have-
like, why are they coming out of his wrists?
Sure. I mean, granted, the other thing is like, well, he didn't have 16 eyes or whatever spiders have.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was one of those. I want to say at the time I was kind of like, eh. I mean, I don't remember if I was one camp or the other. I thought, at the same time, I want Peter to showcase his intelligence because it's a big part of the character. But I was also kind of like, I think I was just giddy at the fact that we had a good Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
I think Spider-Man 1 and 2 had come out or were around the part, they were talked about, or I knew 1 was out. But,
Yeah.
I was just happy to have them. So, and it's funny because, again, there's also that when we look at the modern stuff like Homecoming and Far From Home and Civil War with the Tom Holland stuff, a lot of people were really kind of pushed back at the idea of that. It seemed like for a while that Peter was just going to be Tony Stark's little buddy.
Okay. Yeah.
It felt that way.
And the idea that, I mean, granted, there's a precedent set within the Ultimate books that Peter, that Tony Stark has been around and kind of like an icon or trendsetter for people of the intelligence set. It's not really a thing that would be out of range for Peter to be into the idea of Tony Stark or being
And he
wanted to be
pops
like
up
him.
in Civil War also, which there's
Right.
a weird congruency with that comic book storyline, even though it's completely different. But at least they're teamed up there too.
Mm-hmm.
It is done better in my opinion in the movie. I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, but even so, like even when people were getting their nose out of joint about it, you still have moments of when you look at when Tony first comes to the apartment to talk to him, there's footage of him being Spider, your bargain basement,
right,
your
in the sweatshirt and the goggles,
your dollar store Spider-Man that doesn't have all the cool suit and bells and whistles and stuff. That he's made web shooters, he's still doing the thing, he's still fighting crime. And even more so, it's a subtle nod in Homecoming where he lifts up the lockers, or no, he's in the class and he's mixing up the chemistry stuff and making. You can tell that it's like, I think it says on the bottle something like web shooter formula number 3. Like he's been tinkering with it,
right.
so that you get, it's not spelled out, but you get the idea at least that he's he made it himself, that he's trying to make it better.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I love that stuff. And while we're on Spider-Man for the MCU, the one quick change that I can think of too is the fact that he lives in an apartment, not a house in Forest Hills, which is a change I like.
I was thinking a lot about the MCU Spider-Man because they made a lot of subtle changes that I think are long overdue, and that's one of them. The fact that, like, in the 60s, he was drawn as living in a single-family Queens house with Aunt May, and then the 90s kept that. But, like, that's a $600,000-$700,000 house by the time the 2000 movie was made. Probably be even more by now. So, like, if he's supposed to be, your average kid, money troubles often in the comics is part of it, then that's not where you're going to have him living. You're going to have him living in a more efficient apartment.
Right.
And so that was one change. The fact that his friend group is now all not white.
Sure.
I think is also a very good change because he's a teenager in New York, in Queens, in modern day. And that's just not gonna, it's gonna match his experience more.
Right. It's not reflective. It's having to be all white.
Right.
Right.
Like the 2000 movie did.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so future Deathstroke was in that peer group.
right. That's right.
I was thinking about that. It's a funny bit that he was Flash Thompson too.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, what when we're talking Spider-Man and other stuff, I do think it's interesting that, like, when you get to, say, Spectacular Spider-Man, there's definitely some, a fair amount of, changes there from, the source material. The idea that Eddie isn't a reporter that is disgraced by Spider-Man, having the wrong facts about a Spider-Man story. Now he's kind of like a childhood chum, but he's also kind of antagonistic. And before he becomes Venom, and that's another one that's sort of like kind of from the Ultimate Universe, but not what we would known about Venom before that point.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, and that's one of my favorite things about the show is that it takes characters that didn't meet in the original telling of those stories back in 62 or whatever, and they kind of like lump a ton of people together. They put Eddie Brock in a gang that's got Flash Thompson and all these other characters that really he never, like, by that point, like, Peter was way out of high school, and a lot of those characters had been killed off and just, they weren't in the books anymore. And I think it's cool. There's a moment where, like, he's kind of dating Mary Jane for a second.
Right. Right. I think we talk. I mean, it's one of those things where I think we always, when we were writing and stuff, we talk about the idea of the circle being too close.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things where I think Spectacular does a fine job of, like, really skirting that, where, like, a lot of characters are done, for sake of time or whatever, to get them from being, like, to what that from being just a person to being what they're going to become in really good and interesting ways.
Yeah.
Because I think it's one of those things where, like, I don't know if any of you ever read Spider-Man Chapter 1.
No. What are you talking about?
By
I don't
John
even know
Byrne.
what that is.
It's a miniseries by John Byrne. When John Byrne took over the books, he was basically did like a 12-issue mini, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
In which he was basically getting to retell Spider-Man's origin. But it was one of the things where it was so, like, everything was so close. Like, for example, you'd have, Dr. Octavius worked for Norman Osborn.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, what's another one? Like, the burglar had something to do with Norman Osborn's plan.
Yeah. I hate that stuff. I hate when they make the burglar into something bigger.
Right. And then it was even like people were joking about, like, when the explosion happens to that's what it was. Someone was saying that because one of the ideas that was kicked around was the idea that because Sandman and Norman Osborn had similar hair, that they were somehow related.
You can picture the hair.
Again, because making the circle way too tight, like, it just becomes a point of, like, well, everyone is something, and it shouldn't always be that way.
Yeah. And sometimes not the Sandman Norman Osborn thing, that's dumb. But sometimes there's a grain of an interesting idea in there, right? Which is right. Again, I'm not saying I'm for or against it or anything, but I remember now that as you're talking about it, it's coming back to me. Where I remember that one of the things he set out to be was he tried to kind of put a lot of the bad guy characters together because he was like, otherwise there's some kind of, like, explosion every week in New York that gave somebody powers, right? Sure. And if they're all kind of, like, together, we kind of have, like, one event that's sort of like the origin of multiple people. And yeah, it does keep the circle too tight. But I like I said, I get the germ of where the idea came from, and I think that his heart's in the right place for that. Right. But yeah, I don't really like it when the circle is kept too tight, and I think that Spectacular does a really good job of keeping it tight and wide at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because Spider-Man's world should be a little tight, I think. Right. But yeah, I think in that instance, like why make them related? That's silly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so
it adds nothing.
Right. Well, again, with that explosion idea, it's like, when the explosion happens, that there's supposed to be an explosion that gives Dr. Octopus, Dr. Octopus gets the ability to move the arms without with just mental control.
Right.
And then I think in the same scene, Norman Osborn is there, and that starts to begin the mental decline of him being the Goblin. Yeah. And again, someone, I think at the time, an article I read joked about the idea that, like, well, is Sandman in the trunk, and therefore he gets Sandman powers by being in the bomb blast of this explosion. Again, it gets a little too constrictive that they're all right there at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with, like, changes like that, like, I'm always asking, like, what does it buy us? Like, why is it better? Why did it, like, what is it like? And a lot of times I find that it's not, it doesn't add anything beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like what does Sandman and Norman Osborn relation at all? Like, what kind of conversation does that hint at that they would have?
Right.
Right? Like, I guess it makes a natural team up between the two of them. Okay, that's fine, but I mean, they're both bad guys, so it's like, you know,
Right.
like, I mean, I always assume that there's going to be a Sinister Six supervillain team up against Spider-Man anyway, so I don't need them. They can all be strangers.
To be cousins. Like,
yeah.
you don't have to, they've known each other since they were children, and therefore they're going to team up against Spider-Man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I think that there's small changes too, where it's not like, I mean, Tony Stark in the MCU is really, if you were gonna write down his character traits on a piece of paper from the comic and from Robert Downey, plays, everything is virtually there. What I like though is that Robert Downey just it brings a little bit more charm to it, brings a little bit more of kind of a recklessness, like
Mm-hmm.
that I enjoy. That he's very likely either going to invent he's going to have some kind of breakthrough in science in his laboratory, or he's going to blow his arm off.
Right.
Right. And both are possible. And both are possible in that moment,
Well, I don't know. For me, I mean, to me, it's a love-hate relationship to how it's portrayed, because to me, I thought Tony was a character in himself, but with Robert Downey Jr.'s appearance of larger than life, it circumvents everything that came before him, in my opinion. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see him really with the drinking problem. I would have loved to see him fleshed out a bit more with what happens when people steal his armor, like with the Armor Worlds. That was a nice integration of it.
That would have been great.
I wanted to see a lean back into him being a arms dealer, because Tony was never that smart. We had other people to fall on, but because of the characterization and what they try to push the story forward, Tony became more. He became a stronger womanizer than in the books. What else?
Yeah, well, I think some of that's an Ultimate also, though. I do think the Ultimates. I was going to say Ultimate Avengers. That's not a thing. The Ultimates is sort of a lot of the precursor to many things in the MCU.
Oh no,
I
definitely.
think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like a glaring example again with that was Samuel Jackson's Nick Fury.
Yeah,
Right.
I had that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost art imitates life, imitates art in one fell swoop.
Right.
Yeah, prophetic in a sense.
Yeah, they were definitely the idea of the idea that they're doing the widescreen book with Mark Miller and Brian Hitch's Ultimates, and then the idea that they're almost not so much anybody else, but definitely with Nick Fury, the idea that they're already casting the movie by making him be Sam Jackson.
Yeah,
was definitely like you said, it was pretty prophetic. The idea that that's what they wanted to do. But getting back to Tony real quick, I it's definitely one of those things where, because of Downey Jr.'s charm and the fact that he's he is so good as Tony, any portrayal of Tony since then in the books, in the animated stuff, all that stuff is done through the lens of what Robbie Downey did as Tony
it's
Stark.
all people impersonating.
Yep.
Everybody's
doing their Robert Downey Jr. impression of Tony Stark being Iron Man.
And so I think that's what it adds. I think that's what it buys us, and I think that's a good thing. Air quote good thing, I will say, is that now Tony Stark, who was a character that was kind of a cardboard cutout at times, right? To me anyway, I would say that, right? I didn't have besides the fact that he was a drunk. I didn't have any bearings to what that character how he would speak in a situation, and suddenly Downey plays it, and now there's a voice to that character that's in your head.
I understand that.
But to me, with the result of him playing that character, we'll never get one of his strongest storylines because of Robert Downey Jr. and his personal life.
I think that's a Disney thing.
I would say the only bit we get of it is in Iron Man 2 is at the party when he's got the suit on and people throwing the glassware and he starts shooting it with his repulsors. Mm-hmm. You just get an inkling of, like, I got it in the moment. I'm like, ugh. The idea of him being drunk in that Iron Man suit is terrifying because just for the little bit that Pepper gets, gets the little bit of glass that cuts her. I mean, that's a minute fraction of what could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
If he kept on partying and drinking. Don't get me wrong. Demon in Bottles is a huge bit, and it's one of those things where it stays in the comics forever. As well as the fact that I would love to have seen Armor Wars. That's a great bit too.
Well, we get an inkling of Armor Wars with his vengefulness towards Bucky or the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
That's the closest we get to Armor Wars. The fact that he was relentless in getting people who took his armor in the same fashion that he was relentless as getting Bucky,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, but I think the drawback, if I could call it that, is that, like you said, like the way that like everybody has to write the character that way, everybody has to do the portrayal that way, is that you find just how talented Robert Downey is, that he makes it, right? He makes it big and over the top, but it's never too over the top, right? And everybody else, like all the other writers that kind of put their fingers in it, sometimes it can feel like it's trying too hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it just all feels natural to him. Sure. I think, like as I'm watching it, at least, and that's what I appreciate is that he's larger than life, but at the same time, there's a groundedness to him too, if that's a word.
Yeah, sure. But I get that. But to me, it's the same thing with Samuel Jackson and Nick Fury. It's not like the character didn't have a personality before, but they lean it towards the one with the stronger character development or characterization of that particular person. We already get an example of how Nick Fury was back in the day, but due to how Samuel Jackson plays the character, there's a swap.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. That's one of those. I was going to say is the fact that that's definitely one that resonated back to the books, and now that Nick Fury Jr. looks like a younger Sam Jackson in the comics, in the regular main Marvel Universe stuff is very telling about the fact about the strength of Sam Jackson's portrayal of being Nick Fury.
Right. Yeah, no, I think, and maybe not, you can argue to what degree this is successful, but I think along the lines of Downey, I think Star-Lord is kind of the same way a little bit. Like I think Chris Pratt's portrayal is sort of in the vein of Downey, right? We're like, I mentioned in another episode, I did not have a whole lot of tolerance for the space cosmic stuff in the Marvel universe and everything. But so my first introduction to Star-Lord was, I think, the Avengers cartoon, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. And I didn't know what he was. I'm like, what is he, a robot? What's going on? Right. Like, he's just a stone. And then I see Chris Pratt and it's like, he's Marvel's everyman, in my opinion, that like, he's just some, this will sound harsher than I mean it, but he's just, a buffoon that's out in space,
Right. Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because if you look at, again, it's one of the things where, again, from page to film, Star-Lord is not really, like, there's no real, that personality doesn't come in probably till Abbott and Lanning does their bit with Annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
Where they start to put together that team of Guardians, that Guardians of the Galaxy comes into play. But Star-Lord before that was, it's kind of like, it's, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but it's out of like the same vein of like Logan's Run and those 70s kind of sci-fi stuff. Because he first appears back, that's how long the character goes back. And I've only read bits and pieces of that Star-Lord stuff, but that's not the Peter Quill that we have as Chris Pratt's at all.
Right.
Right.
That's a totally different character. So
there's, I mean, charm, like we said with Downey, like charm is the key. Like there's a buffoonish charm to him that I like.
Sure.
And there's a childlike quality to him too, which again, I mean, given what his origin is in the setup of that movie, it makes perfect sense that he's essentially a man-child.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, of
course, because I'm sure for a lot of it he had to raise himself.
Yeah,
he had Yondu as a daddy, but still it was one of those things where a lot of it was learning by doing. He was like a latchkey kid out in space.
Yeah.
So
well put.
Thanks.
Very well put.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so I was when I started to put together my list of like this stuff, and I was thinking about things, I had that moment of like, let me treat it back to its source. And what was the first time I really was like, this is not to have that, not to have that Annie Wilkes moment of it's not fair, or they didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car moment. It was, it was definitely a moment of, when was the first time I remembered, watching or reading something and then going to watch it and being disappointed because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I had to think all the way back to like the Fantastic Four cartoon, not the first one. Because the first one I watched in South Texas, they ran it on, I think I told the story in another episode, where they ran it on Univision in Spanish, and I wanted to watch the show so badly that I didn't care about that I didn't understand it, because I could follow the story, because it basically was just the Kirby and Lee stuff, animated, not the Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four. But the next one is where I first was like, this is really a really odd transition from panel to animation, which was the Fantastic Four cartoon where they introduce Herbie.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, cool, Fantastic Four, it's Ben Grimm, the Thing, and Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, and Reed Richards, the Mr. Fantastic, and Herbie.
Right. Yeah.
And the story behind it was, always the idea that, whoever was producing this cartoon was afraid that kids were going to see the Human Torch and emulate him and set themselves on fire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that.
And as a result, we got Herbie. Like, Herbie was the fill-in for Johnny. And I don't remember, I haven't, revisited them since, they first aired. Not that I really want to, but I don't know if it's ever explained, like, Johnny's on a mission, or Johnny's, at college, or I don't know if Johnny's even in it, to be honest with you. I just remember that Herbie was kind of like the lame replacement for Johnny. And it's not even like he has a similar, not that I expect a robot to have Johnny's personality, but it was it was one of those things where that was like the first place I could remember it being introduced was, this moment of disappointment with this cartoon that didn't have the actual three of the Fantastic Four, and that was it.
Yeah, I could see that. Plus, you already have a robot with Reed over there. Like,
right. Yeah.
You're taking the guy with the personality out.
Yeah. And then Byrne, I know during John Byrne's run, he brought in, Herbie is like a security droid / protocol droid type for a while that's around. But then it's not, I don't know if Herbie still exists in the books now. I don't know if Dan Slott's the current writer, I think, of Fantastic Four has brought him back or not, but yeah, Herbie's where I first initially had that moment of man, just put the Fantastic Four on.
Right.
I hope we get Herbie in MCU Fantastic Four, though.
We might. We could. Depending. So,
going back to the MCU, though, with Spider-Man specifically, there's one change so far with Spider-Man that I'm not crazy about in the MCU version, and it's understated, but that there's no mention of Ben. Yeah. There's been no reference to Uncle Ben in the MCU stuff as far as I can remember.
I think there's one scene with him and Ned where basically he doesn't want to put more of a strain on her because of everything that's happened. And that's pretty much all that they say about it. It's not even, it's not even that moment of the flashback to the car, the burglar and all that stuff.
Right. And I think the suitcase he takes to Europe has Ben's initials on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
and
it
I think
too.
that's it. And it's a thing where I know why Marvel's doing this. I know why they've made this decision to omit it. And it's because when people are talking about the 3-boot, we had the Raimi version, we had the Andrew Garfield, Mark Webb version, and then MCU version, everybody's first reaction was, oh great, I don't want to see Uncle Ben die again.
Sure.
And that became kind of the meme, at least online, where everyone's oh no, we're going to see Ben die again. We don't want to see that. And I think Marvel kind of overcorrected in that regard by avoiding it entirely. Mm-hmm. And I'm we don't need to see it happen again because we're all familiar with it pretty well. But to omit it completely, I think is a wrong overcorrection on their part. So hopefully, it does play more a part coming up in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, but no, I don't have a problem with that either. But look, actually, I don't have a problem with it. Only because I think it's a more realistic portrayal of it. Because if me as a teenager, I wouldn't be quick to tell everybody that my uncle died because of my negligence, and it just holds as a weight or something on my shoulders that commits me to my purpose. I get that we know, but the portrayal that he's ashamed of it and still ashamed of it makes him a stronger hero, in my opinion. That's why I'm fine with them not alluding to it.
One of my favorite moments in all of the MCU is how we get Spider-Man's origin worked in Civil War, and it's just a line of dialogue.
Yeah,
and I love it. Like he's talking to Tony in his room, and Tony's like, "Why are you doing this?" And then Peter just says, "He's like, when you can do what I can do,
right?
And you choose not to, and people get hurt, it's your fault. And I'm like, perfect, beautiful. And it ties in so perfectly with the theme of that movie and everything, where it's like, it's all about choice. And I'm, oh God, yeah. I mean, it is a beautiful bit, but at the same time, like, I do wonder, like who would they get to be like Uncle Ben in that version? Like, who would have been the one that, you know, that Marissa Tomei married?
Christian Slater.
I still say Christian Slater.
Christian Slater, of course.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Christian Slater, like a good gritty Uncle Ben, like a New York urban Uncle Ben.
I say Kyle Chandler.
Oh, wow. Frank, to answer your question, our engineer put up that 1978 Fantastic Four cartoon had no Johnny Storm because the rights to the character were tied up with Universal Studios that had a television movie of the Human Torch in development. So to answer your question is why we got Herbie the robot.
That's terrible.
It is immensely terrible.
That's right. It's not Justice League where you could basically get another character and plug him in. He's the Fantastic Four. He's a founding member. You kind of need him.
Right. Like, what's the point?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, can you imagine those first Fox movies? Which I mean, I do like those movies. Can you imagine them without the Johnny Ben dynamic?
No,
to it. I mean, not. Like that's the heart and soul of those movies is that stuff.
Yeah.
How many? You know? I wonder. Well, no, but no, you're right. I definitely love that part of it. But I was going to ask you, do you remember how many episodes we had to sit through with Herbie and no Torch?
Yeah. No,
that's the same grueling thing.
Yeah, no,
I never made it to watch any of these because when Cartoon Network first started and it was on super late, I always tried to stay up and make it, and I never did. I always fell asleep before it came on.
I don't think you're missing anything. I don't have, like I said, I don't have a fondness for the show. I just remember, again, it was one of those things. I was like, oh, cool, the Fantastic Four, and it wasn't four of them. So
I have a recent one that Clifton, you're going to roll your eyes because we've talked about this a lot, but it's a recent one, and it's I love the movie otherwise, but I really hate Cassandra Cain's portrayal in Birds of Prey. You know what I mean? It's just like it's a character. I agree that, like, I know that when it comes to Cassandra in the comics, there's not a whole lot to build off of, right?
She's a character I have zero connection with whatsoever from the comics.
But I do think, though, that you had writers like James Tynion on Detective Comics that was like investing in her and was doing some cool things with that character. And what I think is that you got a version of her that didn't resemble at all anything from the comic. And it was just, but like I said to you guys, like, this character so easily could just be Holly from Batman Year One, and you wouldn't have to change a thing. Right. And you wouldn't have this character that I still say I think is more popular than people think. You know, but you know, I will, but what I will say completely, you know, arguing against my own point for that is that you know, backlash over her portrayal has not been anywhere near as big as I thought it would be.
I just think it was more of a keep a diverse cast. It could have been easily put in what you suggested and name her that, and that would have been a better choice in my opinion. But I think they went with a diverse cast in choosing that particular character at that age range to be what they needed to be. I'd have been fine with Stephanie Brown if you're gonna keep you know, the age range, even though it's not who the character is. But yeah, to me, I just see it as a way to, again, diversify the cast.
You could have done Carrie Kelly. You know how people always love to shoehorn her into things, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even that character at least like does make some sense for that too. I mean, she's completely grown up in like a neglectful household and stuff like that. Like, you know, I love the movie. I don't want to say it like I really, really like the movie a lot. It's just that's just the weakness for me is that, you know, and I do think the actress that plays her is really, really good. But, you know, in my head, if you just change the name on the script to say something else.
Well, my thing is, I mean, you know, I've read the Kelly, was it Kelly Puckett? The when she had her solo book, when Cassandra Cain, when Batgirl had her solo book, and it was written by...
I think you're right.
It's Kelly Puckett and Damon Scott. that book made a real effort to flesh her out, and she was at that point the character was pretty almost near mute, like didn't speak, only could speak through violence. That was part of the deal with her character. And then they introduced the fact that she was the main adversary through that book, and then she's trying to connect with Barbara, and Barbara's still Oracle, and all that stuff about being Batgirl. It's a great book. It's one of the things where I like a lot of the heavy lifting about her character is done in that book. I just feel like I still haven't seen Birds of Prey, so I really can't comment about whether or not the character is or isn't what she's supposed to be in that. But it sounds like she's not. And again, I agree with you. If that's the case, then just use another character. There's no reason why you need to have that character be something that she isn't if you're not going to use her that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry to go back, but we only had to sit through 13 episodes of Herbie the Robot in that rendition of it. Yeah. Well, I was going to say that I'm going to bring up a totally different character in which I think they finally got it right when they put it on TV is the Punisher, as opposed to Dolph Lundgren and a host of other characters trying to play it in the movies. It wasn't until John Barenthal, I think, got it right with his intensity and his anguish over the character itself.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. That he, as an actor, there's a lot going on with him. The way, I mean, like you can see it in his face, the way he, his characters process stuff that I love about his acting. That there's, and especially with him playing Frank, it's definitely kind of, everything, like you said, the anguish comes through loud and clear. That it's not just I'm a brutal guy that kills people. It's like, oh no, he's haunted by the death of his family every single moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a sensitivity that comes through too. There's a warmth in moments that I think is actually quite daring to do for that character that is so, that's so pegged as one thing. And Frank, we've talked about this too, is like the moment where, he's sitting in a booth with Karen and they're talking about love. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're getting the Punisher and it's a great scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in any of the Netflix Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thinking again, the other thing we're backtracking to stuff we already talked about. In looking at the Raimi stuff, one of the biggest changes that I really never ever worked for me was the fact that, and again, say what you will about Spider-Man 3, whether you love it or hate it. I overall I like it. I don't love it, but the idea that they tie in, the Sandman has to be tied into Uncle Ben and all that. That it wasn't just the burglar was on his own. He had an accomplice. I never thought that was necessary. Again, I'm perfectly fine in my life. I understand people make choices based on things that happen to them, and I get that. And sometimes it's not as black and white or as simple as they're just a bad person. But you don't
like that Joe Chill moment.
No, I'm perfectly okay with the idea of sometimes people are just, they enjoy being, they get their power set increased, and then therefore they're just going to, do whatever they want to do. But I never liked that idea in Spider-Man 3, the idea that he was tied into that, because it it just totally changes everything about, the sense of responsibility and Peter's guilt
of which he takes none.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing that always got me too, is at the end he confesses.
Yes.
As to like why he does it, and then takes no responsibility for it. He just wisps away.
Yeah. Right. And Peter seems, and the other thing is Peter seems cool with it.
Yeah.
Like there's no more of like, well, wait.
I'm with you. Yeah. I mean, I can hear the groans now and the hate mail coming, but like we could do an episode on Spider-Man 3, because I'm with you. I mean, there's stuff in there that I like a lot, and I think like I could kind of get a sense of where they were going with it. And then there's this other things I'm just like, what is going on with this movie?
Right.
Like, it's one of those things where I almost think that like with another draft or two, it could have been really, really good. And I like my change is a cosmetic one, which on the looking at it, like, again, makes certain sense that like when he gets the black costume, that like, why would it change the visual? Like it should just be his Spider-Man costume, just black. Right. But I've always been a little disappointed that we never got like the traditional Spider-Man black costume on screen, because it's one of the coolest designs I think I can ever think of in comics.
Yeah, it's a great one for being a costume that replaces the original. It's a pretty great design.
Yeah.
because that doesn't always happen. A lot of times you have people that like Wonder Man, who has like 8 different costumes. And 8 different costumes that really no one really likes which one of those.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're still people
right.
are still trying to give that poor bastard a costume, and they never really work.
Yeah, on the other side of that pendulum is Iron Man. No matter what you put him in, people like it.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. Generally.
yeah. But the Spider-Man one, I'd have paid money just to see him in a black suit in the big screen.
Yeah.
Sure.
So we should start closing out. So, I still have lots on my list. I'm sure you guys too. We can always come back to this.
Yeah.
Also, I think, we got a lot of mileage out of this one. More than I thought we would. But so to start wrapping up, though, is there a character that you can think of that if they do adapt to screen, that they would actually be wise to make some changes? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys have anybody in mind?
So with the upcoming Marvel series Moon Knight,
Ooh.
I don't really. I mean, it's such an integral part of his story that he has a multiple personality situation going on. So it's one of those things where I don't know. I mean, obviously you would want to handle that with sensitivity and not over dramatize it or make it something, But I don't know how you could do that with that character and still have it be something that people are going to accept. At the time when the character was created back in the late 70s, I think is when is Werewolf by Night is his first appearance.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, I don't even know if that's like in that because I've never read it, but I know when he was introduced as his own book, that's a big thing.
It's not in the Werewolf by Night appearance. I actually have that right behind me on the shelf.
Oh, wow.
Like the issue. But in that he's just a villain hunting a werewolf. So it's a very minor part.
But it's one of the things where I don't know, obviously if you play up the mental illness side of things and the idea that, if you play up that side and the idea that if he has mental illness and he's got multiple personalities and on top of that, he thinks he's speaking to this Egyptian god Khonshu, right. I don't know how palatable that's going to be to people.
Right.
Right.
Like what's funny is you actually took mine.
Oh, sorry.
Because Moon Knight's the one I was thinking. Because like I said, I'm a big fan of the comics. I grew up reading them. I'm like, they were like the adventure aspect of them.
Mm-hmm.
He was a mercenary who had a change of heart.
Yep.
It was all interesting stuff. But like when I heard that they announced the Disney Plus show, I started thinking, is that going to work? And how is that going to work?
Right.
And it's something I like. Mm-hmm. And so, I was thinking that too. And then I started thinking about there was the 2014 version, the more recent version that was Warren Ellis and Declan, I can't remember
Shelby?
the artist. Shelby, yeah, him.
We're talking about the version of him in the suit, right?
Yeah, in that version, they kind of make it a little more less, I don't know what you'd say, but they streamline it more to like a street level detective type of thing. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's what they'll do.
Okay.
I did like that version too.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing that was out. I never actually got a chance to read it. So
yeah, it's a really cool design. The book's really nice. Has a lot of nice design work in the panels.
Okay.
Well, I was going to suggest piggybacking off of that mentality or that idea. I don't understand this Vision and Scarlet Witch to an extent, just because of the portrayal of her that we've gotten is basically Marvel Girl with the levitation and the mind powers.
Right.
Her power has always been borderline mysticism, but it's supposed to be possibilities, right?
Right. Probabilities.
Probabilities, but we've never got that type of feeling from seeing her and how she uses her powers.
Right.
So the nature of the character is wholly and solely different than the comics, correct?
Sure. I wondered about that too when it was announced, because in the comics at one point I'm pretty sure she studies with Agatha Harkness.
Yeah, she definitely studies with Agatha Harkness.
And that sort of like leans into the mysticism side, and then she has that moment in Avengers where they go to Wundagore Mountain and they're trying to find out about their origins, and they meet up with Mordred, and she taps into the dark energy and all that stuff. I don't know if what portion of that they're going to draw from, if at all. But because again, with everything going on, there's not been any announcements of like, well, this person's going to play Agatha Harkness, or there's any extra additional, other than her and Paul Bettany. I haven't heard. When I say her, I say what's her name? The actress.
No, Elizabeth Olsen.
Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, good. I would have been here all night trying to get that one. But Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, those are the only two characters that we know of for sure. I just think it's one of those things where it might be, the door opens there, and then once we get to, if we ever get to, when eventually we get to the Doctor Strange sequel, the mysticism side is definitely going to be more in play. But again, I think they're going to have to do something, unless they're just going to full on embrace the idea that Agatha Harkness exists long before we see her in Fantastic Four, where she's Franklin's nanny.
Yeah, that's the introduction of the character, Franklin's nanny, because she's the one that can deal with a baby with those type of powers,
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But it's just they're going to have to introduce that part of her background, at least in that series, in order to bring us even halfway to what they're portraying to the trailers that we're seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I actually couldn't think of anybody, so I will co-sign on Moon Knight with you guys, because I actually think that's a good one too. Like, it's how's that going to make sense to an audience? Yeah, you're gonna have to run a comb through that. Oh, I guess going on that, I guess Hawkman. Yeah, you might have to clean that up a little bit too. I mean, they're kind of similar in that like weird lot going on with their backstories.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think you would have to just play it straight at first, and then be like, oh, by the way, this is only our 35th incarnation or reincarnation, and basically deal with the fact that no, they do this eternally with it's the two of them in half set forever.
Yeah.
So, but I think you could do it.
I'd like to see them try for sure.
I mean, on the other side of things, I mean, they did an all right version of that in DC Legends of Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like first season, you have those two characters, so it's it's explained. It can be explained.
Yeah. I forgot they were part of that.
Yeah, they were not very long.
Because to me, that's that. I just think of that as like Rip Hunter's show. You know what I mean?
Sure, it was.
He hasn't been on in a while.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, only in the first two seasons. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's more like White Canary now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Very much so. Yeah. But no, I mean, but again, getting back to CW shows, the other thing that I thought about was just the idea of, and we talked about it before in another episode, the idea that they're doing the Superman show, and it's really the first time they're doing a Superman family show. Like it's not, hey, I'm gonna, Lois is trying to figure out who I am, while I wink at the camera. It's not, will they or won't they, like kind of a moonlighting type situation like Lois and Clark. It's literally, no, they're together and they have kids. And I wonder how they're going. I mean, they're going to have to make changes because we really haven't, other than an imaginary story in the 60s or the 50s, we don't really have that set up to draw from.
Okay.
So that was the other one I was thinking about, of being, of like, I don't know exactly how that's going to play.
But that's how the current Superman's is portrayed. I think they're just leaning into current continuity.
But they don't have, right. But the thing about this is the way I understood it, or the way I thought I read it, was that they have two kids, right?
Yes.
And unlike what they have in the books, they have two kids, and I think one of them has powers and one of them doesn't.
Oh,
I smell a villain.
And yeah, right, exactly. And I'm like, oh, are we going to lean into the heavily of the idea of Cain and Abel and blah blah blah? If that's going to be the thing of like, oh, we're gonna he's going to be super resentful of the fact he doesn't have power. I don't know. Or is it going to be like an Invincible situation where he's just waiting to get his powers?
Right.
So we'll see what it flashes out.
Yeah. I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I am too.
Yeah. We got way more mileage out of this topic than I thought we would. So yeah, so maybe we come back to it because there's a big movie that we didn't mention that has a thing in there that makes me roll my eyes every time, and so I'm not going to say it. So that'll be the first one out of my mouth if we come back to this one. So. All right. What about you guys? We'd love to hear from you in the comics. Were there any that we missed? Don't forget to suggest a topic for the show while you're there. Also, you'll find notes, links, as well as our past episodes on letmeknowhowitis.com. There you can find the link to our YouTube channel as well. We'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe there as well. And finally, don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/letmeknowhowitis and follow us on Twitter at our show's initials, LMKHII. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.